This is Cents Per Mile, featuring Charles Gracie, Paul Gibson, and Josh Haynes. Everyone knows the trucking industry has issues, but most people are afraid to talk about it.
Someone's got to do it.
With loads of recruiting and marketing experience and backed by the largest driver audience in the world, we deliver carriers the driver perspective, find solutions, and help make sense make sense.
Thank you for tuning in to Cents Per Mile. I'm your host, Charles Gracie.
And I'm your co-host, Paul Gibson.
Hey, I'm Josh Haynes, and it's fine. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about truck parking, specifically paid truck parking.
Yep, and we're going to have a debate between some drivers and truck parking club to see what everybody's feelings feel like. But before we talk to them, we're going to talk about us. Right. So our podcast is on iHeartRadio, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Spotify. We're also on YouTube. We're just about everywhere. And wherever you do happen to consume our content, if you could like, subscribe, or rate wherever that happens to be so we can get pushed out a little bit further.
You can even go to centspermilepodcast.com where you can submit to be a guest, submit a topic, or even to become a sponsor.
Sponsor? Who's our sponsor today, Charles?
We got Mesilla Valley Transportation, helping America move forward. Visit them at m-v-t.com.
All right. Well, with that, we are also going to be at F3. If you've watched the past few episodes, there's usually a QR code right here, but there's not because you missed the chance for the discount, but we'll still be there. You should still come and party with us. Also, if you haven't heard Charles Gracie talk enough, tomorrow, he will be doing a webinar on like best recruiting practices and several other things. There is a link in the description, but it's time to go behind the desk with 10th Street.
Tired of being asked where you are on your route? Driver Pulse from 10th Street lets you share your route and live location with carriers, shippers, and loved ones, so you don't have to tell the same story over and over. Receive important messages about terminals, route conditions, and high enforcement areas to keep you ahead of annoyances and keep everyone else informed. Sign up for Driver Pulse for free today.
So, for today's purposes of having a healthy debate about paid truck parking, we have Truck Parking Club joining us, and their two representatives. And then we have two drivers sharing their perspectives regarding this hot topic.
Yep, they will go back and forth. We will have two chances for each of them to make opening statements, and then we will go through questions that'll all be 2 minutes long. And at the end, me and Charles will give our opinions about the whole thing. So, Charles, why don't you ask the first person to start their opening statement?
All right. Now we have Jamie with his opening statement. Jamie, you have 1 minute.
Hello, everybody. Texas Trucker. Jamie Anderson, Daystar Transport. I'm the owner of a carrier or partner in a carrier. We own and operate our own equipment. So we've been investigating Truck Parking Club, or I have, and speaking to them. You know, I'm all for what they're doing as far as expanding parking in private areas, but, you know, it kind of takes me aback when I pull into two of my favorite truck stops, the biggest ones on the interstate, and they went 100% paid, and you can't use points or anything to pay for them, you know. So, you know, we're at the point where if drivers don't stand up, that this is a reality that it's going to paid parking nationwide, and you're going to be paying for every day to park. So if you don't mind paying every day to park, just go ahead and be quiet and let it go. But if you mind paying every day to park, you better stand up, because that's where we're headed.
All right, Evan, now it's your turn to give your opening statement. You have 1 minute.
Thanks, guys. I'm Evan Shelley, co-founder and CEO of Truck Parking Club. We're a two-sided marketplace where we help truckers find and reserve hourly, daily, weekly, and monthly truck parking locations at 942 of our locations across the U.S. And we help property owners and businesses monetize their extra space. That could be trucking companies with extra space in their yard, tow truck companies, truck repair shops, CDL schools, warehouses, truck parking operators, and truck stops. This year alone, we've added 7,000 spaces that were never publicly available. And I know that we're here today to talk about paid truck parking at truck stops. Today, we have 35 locations at truck stops. That's 3.7% of our total locations. some 1,200 or so spaces of our total spaces on the platform. And while some of the locations switch entirely to paid parking, a lot of those locations still offer incentives, and we actually push for free parking at each of the locations. And what we believe is that truck stops are private businesses free to make their own decisions, offering truck parking, not offering truck parking, paid, unpaid, etc. We did not invent paid truck parking at truck stops, and the major truck stops have been implementing their own solutions for years.
So our first question is, truck stops are businesses. At this point, the only thing that will stop them from charging parking at this point is the government intervention. Do you think government should regulate the way truck stops do business? If you don't, what is your problem with Truck Parking Club doing this? Mitchell, this is your question.
So, yeah. So, I think we should try to have, as little like government intervention as possible, because that leads more into like, communistic, socialistic control, right? Like what it is it's more or less about just coming to a common consensus. And I think for myself, like my earlier commentary about Truck Parking Club on social media was more of my knee-jerk reaction to, oh my gosh, I'm starting to see some of the, a few of the truck stops that I love that they have some paid parking now. I know that overall, like, after doing more extensive looking into it, that it's a rather low percentage. It kind of depends on what state you're in. In Iowa, it's actually like 35% of the locations you guys have are truck stop affiliated, and it looks like there's something going on with Casey's. And so, like, when I was making that video, I was in Ealia, Missouri, at the fast lane, and I know that they never had paid truck parking, so that was just kind of like, it was just a few spots, but it was kind of like, okay. And then, I'm from Iowa, so I noticed that there was a lot of controversy going around Avoca, Iowa, at the Pilot Flying J. There's a sign going into the property, and a lot of drivers are underneath the assumption that the whole thing is Truck Parking Club, and they, when in reality on the website it's just that south back row. So look, I understand that the way that the industry is probably going to go is that there's going to be paid truck parking, but we've got to figure out how to make it economically work within the industry. I think Truck Parking Club's concept and what they've done as far as that 95% is that they have created new truck parking is amazing. And I applaud them on that.
Okay, our next question. Truck stops offering paid parking spots have been said to clearly frowned upon by drivers. Last I checked, the Truck Parking Club has gained access to over 900 different lots. Why go after truck stops? This question is for Reed.
So why truck stops when we have locations? So we've got 942 locations. That's true. We had 5 or 6 a day. 3.7%. We recalculated it this morning. Our truck stops. And they really started approaching us really early on in the business, about 18 months ago, well before I actually joined the business. And they said things like, and these are mostly franchises or small independent operators, and then they say things like, that our lot's kind of chaotic, it's unorganized. We have people stopping in who never pay, or never buy fuel, or never come in the store. We have people leaving equipment on our lot for weeks without really any recourse, and that ultimately harms the business and harms the experience for their other customers, and that's a serious concern to them. So that's stuff we hear from them frequently. All of the majors, or most of the majors, obviously have their own payment systems, and they've gone that way to some extent. So we didn't invent this idea, and a lot of the independents and small franchise operations need a solution as well. And we're not even the only game in town. So when people call us, they tell us, hey, we're looking at other options as well. And we knew full well we would get blowback for making the decision to accept this business and to facilitate and support this business. But ultimately, we made the decision as a group, knowing full well we'd get blowback, because we know we're going to do a way better job than any other company that offers this sort of solution to these truck stops. We know we can stand behind our customer service 24/7, 365, all former drivers. We know we're going to be able to provide incentives for the truck stop to offer to the drivers to get free parking, fuel purchases, in-store purchases. We make that very easy for them to do. And we also do everything we can to twist their arm even to offer this. At the end of the day, it's their decision to come on board with us. It's their decision to offer incentives, but we do everything we can to encourage it.
Mesilla Valley Transportation, founded by truck drivers for truck drivers. Why choose MVT? Well, it's simple.
I started off as a driver. Now I'm managing routes. With MVT, the sky's the limit.
Balance is key. State-of-the-art equipment, a strong focus on safety, and a family-driven company culture where respect and hard work are at the core. Mesilla Valley Transportation, where we care about you. Join our family today.
Jamie, you are an owner-operator, which means you're in fact a business owner. You have margins and do what you can to not take freight below your operating cost, but you do negotiate freight that fits within the win for your business. This is part of a free market. How is that different from Truck Parking Club, except in the business of truck stops?
I'm not against free market capitalism, brother. I'm a conservative. I'm a Republican. Truckers for Trump. But, you know, what you got to take into consideration is we're a captured market. We are a federally regulated entity as part of the trucking industry. We are captured by HOS, hours of service, so we have to park. So when you're dealing with a federally regulated industry and you have no regulations, then there's a problem there. We're a captured market. We don't have no choice. And if this goes paid parking, it's going to be something that affects every driver, company driver, owner op. It doesn't matter. You will not be reimbursed for this most of the time. And it's something that's coming off of your family's table. I mean, if it goes paid parking and we have to pay every day to park, that's anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000 a year. That'll pay our insurance premium pretty much for a year. That'll pay for a brand new set of tires for our truck and trailer every year. You know, to me, it's a problem. I don't have the money to do that. I don't want to take off my family's table to turn around and give it to some entrepreneur because they come in and basically targeted a captured market.
Evan, you have a background in real estate and property investment. Seeing the effect that Airbnb has had on the housing market, do you feel that this can have a similar effect on truck parking?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a direct analogy. I mean, Airbnb and Truck Parking Club are both two-sided places, but what Airbnb has done, it's given homeowners the ability to monetize their extra space, whether it's in their house or they go out and buy more houses. Ultimately, what happens, that lowers the cost of short-term rentals at Airbnbs and hotels because you create more supply and homeowners go out and build more supply. And it also raises the value of the properties, making it more valuable for the developer. In essence, what that means is developers will go out and build more of it because it makes that land valuable. Ultimately, like I mentioned, creating more supply. And what we've seen as truck parking has grown over the last couple years is that property members come on our platform with some limited supply, and then they start looking at more opportunities to buy and build more truck parking across the U.S. So I think there is a solid comparison there. When you take something that is not being used and not being monetized and provide the ability to monetize it, property owners and businesses will go and build more of it. Ultimately, creating more competitive pricing for drivers. And we do think this is a solid private sector solution.
All right, this next question is for Mitchell. So as a company driver who works for a carrier and part of an organization that has criticized the industry and published a Declaration of Independence offering essentially to take the driver's portion of the supply chain, do you have a proposal on how to solve the issue that Truck Parking Club is trying to solve, since the carrier you work for, the government, and the truck stops operating in the free market you'd be supporting have not?
Well, that's a pretty big question to answer in just a minute, but I think that there definitely is a solution. I think that there definitely is a solution to it. I believe that there's land that's not being utilized, and I know that you guys at Truck Parking Club are trying to figure out those spots. And I believe that there's also another way to look at, if we have to pay for truck parking, you guys call it a club. I'm surprised there's not some sort of like a subscription model to it. I think that might solve, and it might take some of the shock factor out of the per day price and go more towards, you know, maybe it covers like 10 spots a month for $70 a month or something like that. And there's a way to geo fence that, so that way the correct truck stops are getting paid for the ones you're visiting and such. I think that mainly, and then like with other land being available, we see a lot along the federal highway. If the government does want to get involved, land that can be repurposed that they already have, that it can be put towards that model. I think the biggest thing with that, if truck drivers are okay with utilizing paid parking as a tool, but that there's also proper amenities available. Some of the locations, maybe like at the like trucking companies or tow yards, maybe they're letting drivers use some of those amenities. Maybe they're not. If it's just a big open lot, you kind of need to have a porta pot and some trash cans. There's got to be some sort of make sure that there's always amenities for drivers if they have to pay. And then, I think that as it smooths out over time, I think that it's also that we need to come together and figure out, do some of the shippers need to help foot the bill? I know my carrier will pay for 2 nights a week. Right now, you know, are all carriers going to want to do that? And then what is that going to do to owner operators, the smaller ones like Jamie? That's a huge increase in cost if it becomes a per day thing as that grows. We just have to we just have to see it.
Reed, Truck Parking Club has caught a lot of heat on X for your 2 wrapped Cybertrucks. MSRP for a Cybertruck is $79,990. The average spot you host is around 20. That would be approximately 8,000 nights of paid truck parking. What kind of message do you think this sends to drivers who use your service?
Yeah, so I'm not going to need 2 minutes to answer this one. We only have one Cybertruck, and the company doesn't own it, or the company didn't buy it. It's actually Evan's car. We just wrapped it with the branding because we thought it was good marketing, and so far that's seemed to be in the case because a lot of people talk about it. Evan, for those of you who don't know, has had a very successful real estate career prior to starting Truck Parking Club. And that obviously allowed him to fund the business to get it off the ground. And it also allowed him to buy a Cybertruck. And as far as I'm concerned, that's like something that is like laudable. I don't think because literally we did not buy it as a company. We bought it with hard-earned money. So I don't really think that's an issue in any way, shape, or form. I can see how some people might be like, oh, okay, they might have bought it with company, but we didn't. And we wouldn't have done that if we wouldn't have done that. And we didn't. So it's not a big deal.
Jamie, you are here to represent drivers. CDLLife has the largest audience of drivers in the world. We polled them, and over half of them are okay with paid truck parking as an option at truck stops, whether it be a nicer spot or a guaranteed spot in a busy area. What's your response to this poll?
My response was the correct questions asked. It wasn't, okay, would you choose to pay to park if you have a choice? We're not talking about a choice here. We're talking about, so the question that should be asked is, are you all right with paying to park every night and not having a choice? So that's the question that should be asked. I've addressed Dooner on this on his podcast when he come out with Truck Parking Club, and basically done an ABC News with Kamala Harris and didn't ask them the hard questions, give them the puff questions and let them get their point out. But, there wasn't nobody there to refute what they were saying. So the questions that was being asked wasn't the correct questions. They have stated that the world is going paid parking, whether we like it or not. And they want to be at the front of it, basically the monopoly of it, and they use the pro trucker platform to be able to promote that. I disagree. I run my own polls, by the way, and they come out about 80% against. So we've had other people run polls too. How many people out of that 50% wasn't actually truckers? Because I found on my polls that there was a lot of people commenting that wasn't truckers. They was brokers. They was part of Truck Parking Club. They was the Freight X crew. So that's a question you got to ask yourself.
All right, Jamie, in response to your answer, I can tell you that the poll was completed by verified CDL drivers and holders from the CDLLife app, which responded in half to they're not opposed to it, as well as the question being phrased being, are you okay with truck parking as a paid option at a truck stop? Because right now it's not 100% paid. It's not a hypothetical. It is a legitimate question based on the fact that right now it's an option. Very few truck stops have converted to fully paid. So I'll give you a minute to respond to that.
Okay. So yeah, I feel you, man. But here's the difference in the questions, and this is where you got to be careful. The question is an option. So let's go down the road, and I'm sure you've heard the Zoom call of me and Truck Parking Club when Miss Tracy specifically stated, whether we like it or not, the world going to paid parking. To me, the world is not an option. The world is everything. You can say however you want and phrase it however you want, but words to me have meanings. And when you say the world is going to paid parking, when we look at the momentum that Truck Parking Club has, since I've started down this route, they had 726. They probably got over 1,000 facilities now, and we're seeing more and more truck parking areas that was previously free go to paid parking. You know, what we know is greedflation. A lot of these small independent truck stops, the owners are going to say, well, this is something we can monetize and make money off of, and it's going to push it even further and harder. So like I said, if you're all right with paying every day to park, because that's where this is going, sit back and be quiet. But if you're not, you need to stand up and let them know, we're not for this. You're welcome.
Evan, obviously, as the owner of Truck Parking Club, this was ultimately your decision to allow business to partner with truck stops. What do you have to say the portion of your customers who are turned off by this development?
Yeah, so I think Reed already hit a lot of the points, and we thought a lot about it before actually going into truck stops, and half our team is former drivers, talked with them about going into truck stops, and I think Reed really answered a lot of those questions. I think talking directly to those drivers, help us with feedback on your thoughts on us being in the truck stops and ways that things can go better for yourselves as drivers. Don't spread misinformation and propaganda that's just trying to bring the business down, right? We're driver centric. We hire former drivers almost on a daily basis at this point. We are for drivers. And if we were not, no drivers would work with us. And help give us constructive criticism. I think Mitchell's done a great job of just giving feedback, not misinformation and propaganda. I mean, the subscription thing that Mitchell just mentioned is an amazing piece of advice that we've actually been talking about internally, because we think that's a great tool to actually spread out those costs where it's a win-win for the driver and the truck stop. Right now, drivers and truck stops are getting squeezed. We think the subscription model at truck stops may be something that can actually be a win-win for everybody. Ultimately, we're well equipped, as Reed said, 24/7, 365 customer service. That is for the driver anytime they need us, truck stop, not truck stop. And ultimately at truck stops, we see these paid parking companies that come into truck stops and implement predatory towing to try to make money through predatory towing, not through paid parking at truck stops. We fight against that at truck stops. Some of that propaganda that's going around is saying that we're doing predatory towing at all these truck stops. That is not happening, and I would love for anyone to provide one piece of evidence that that is the case, but it's not. And we ensure that it is not, and we push for drivers that does not happen at our locations, and if it does happen, we take care of it, and we remove that location. And ultimately, we push for incentives. I think Mitchell mentioned it, Reed mentioned it. We push for incentives at all these truck stops because we know fair is fair. If you're parking at the truck stop, you're not spending any money, that truck stop needs to make some money by you using their real estate. But if you are spending money at the truck stop, you need to get free parking. That's not a controversial statement. That's just business. And that's what we believe in. And I'd love to talk with any drivers that want to have a civil conversation about the matter.
We're excited to announce CDL Connect sessions, powered by CDLLife. 8 engaging webinars filled with insights and fresh strategies to transform how you connect with drivers. Join us Thursday, November 14th for our 6th session, Unlocking Recruiter Excellence, Strategies for Success, with Charles Gracie, President of Hot Seat Services. Discover how effective nurturing and strategic partnerships can elevate recruiters from dialers to closers. and understand the key traits that define a great recruiter. Click the link in the description to register and browse future sessions.
That was a lot of great perspectives being shared, but ultimately, I think it's a solution when there was a lack of any other ones. And in my opinion, if I'm pulling into a lot as a former driver and all free parking is taken, I'm not against having a paid option when there are no other options.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely a lot better, especially with hours of service and all that stuff. It's if it's there, at least it's there, and then you're not. I mean, that's still better than being parked on an off ramp, and a lot safer for sure. And it is one of those things. I don't love that there isn't some sort of regulation that guarantees those spaces. But when the other thing too is it's business. If there's a hole, you got to fill it.
Well, that concludes today's show. Thank you for tuning in to Cents Per Mile. I'm your host, Charles Gracie.
And I'm your co-host, Paul Gibson. See you next time.
Finish him!
No! No!